in front of me. Father, we come before you today. We bow down before you. We pray that you will bless us today. You will guide us today, that you will be in every act that we do, in every word that we speak. Holy Spirit, we invite you to come here, dwell among us, move among us, and help us experience you, Lord. Help us learn more about you today. Help us understand the meaning of truth, the meaning of love, and how to put it in action, Father. you. God, Lord, we pray that today you will bless us abundantly by guiding our hearts to seek you, guiding our voices and our limbs, our hands, our feet, whatever we do, oh Father, just to be praising you. Holy Spirit, we pray that you will pass around us, you will touch us, you will guide us. You will guide our every action today. That every person who speaks, every person who's leading a group, who's leading a band, they are done. They're holding on to the Lord, they're blessed and they're strengthened by you, O Father. They do everything in your name. Pray this all in your name. Amen.
So, as we just sang, and as many of you who've been coming to our church regularly have heard, our church's theme for this year is truth and love in action. We look at Jesus and see that that's what he did, and then we want to follow that same thing. And a bit of the breakdown of the kind of discussions that we're going to have, or these sessions that we're going to have, is we have 3 of them, and one of them is going to be strongly based on truth, or talking about truth. The second one will talk a lot about love, and the third one will talk a lot about action, truth and love in action. And we're going to be looking at what is sometimes referred to as the Sermon on the Plain. So Jesus went around to a lot of these villages preaching his message, and so he said a lot of the same things to different people groups. There'd be slight differences in his speech of it, so we have 2 of these sermons that are recorded that are very similar. One is called the Sermon on the Mount, that's in the book of Matthew, but as we're going through the book of Luke, we're looking at the Sermon on the Plain, and it has strong similarities, but also some differences. So first I wanted us to get to just read through all of that sermon, and then we'll break it up into sections, and we're going to do one section this morning, one section this evening, and then another section tomorrow. So for those of you who have your Bible with you, Luke chapter 6. And we're going to start at verse 17 and go through the end. And for those of you who... Interesting. Maybe that's one of those like Dutch versus English things? That says it starts at 20?
Yeah, totally other version.
Interesting. In mine, it starts at 17. Well, no, actually, you're right. 17 just gives the head up to it. Jesus went down with them and stood on a level place, or Jesus stood on a plain. A large crowd of his disciples was there, and a great number of people from all over Judea, from Jerusalem, and from the coastal region around Tyre and Sidon, who had come to hear him and to be healed of their diseases. And those troubled by impure spirits were cured. The people all tried to touch him because power was coming from him and healing them all. And looking at his disciples, he said, "Blessed are you who are poor, for yours is the kingdom of God. Blessed are you who hunger now, for you will be satisfied. Blessed are you who weep now, for you will laugh. Blessed are you when people hate you, when they exclude you and insult you and reject your name as evil because of the Son of Man. Rejoice in that day, and leap for joy, because great is your reward in heaven. For that's how their ancestors treated the prophets. But woe to you who are rich, for you have already received your comfort. Woe to you who are well fed now, for you will go hungry. Woe to you who laugh now, for you will mourn and weep. Woe to you when everyone speaks well of you, for that's how their ancestors treated the false prophets. But to you who are listening, I say, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, bless those who curse you, pray for those who mistreat you. If someone slaps you on one cheek, turn to them the other also. If someone takes your coat, do not withhold your shirt from them. Give to everyone who asks, and if anyone takes what belongs to you, do not demand it back. Do to others as you would have them do to you. If you love those who love you, what credit is that to you? Even sinners love those who love them. And if you do good to those who are good to you, what credit is that to you? Even sinners do that. And if you lend to those from whom you expect repayment, what credit is that to you? Even sinners lend to sinners, expecting to be repaid in full. But love your enemies. Do good to them, and lend to them without expecting to get anything back. Then your reward will be great, and you will be children of the Most High, because he's kind to the ungrateful and wicked. Be merciful, just as your Father is merciful. Do not judge, and you will not be judged. Do not condemn, and you will not be condemned. Forgive, and you will be forgiven. Give, and it will be given to you. A good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over, will be poured into your lap. For at the measure you use, it will be measured to you." He also told them this parable. "Can the blind lead the blind? Will they not both fall into a pit? The student is not above the teacher, but everyone who is fully trained will be like their teacher. So why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your own eye? How can you say to your brother, brother, let me take that speck out of your eye, when you yourself fail to see the plank in your own eye? You hypocrite! First take the plank out of your eye, then you will see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye. No good tree bears bad fruit, nor does a bad tree bear good fruit. Each tree is recognized by its own fruit. People do not pick figs from thorn bushes or grapes from briars. A good man brings good things out of the good stored up in his heart, and an evil man brings evil things out of the evil stored up in his heart. For the mouth speaks what the heart is full of. Why do you call me Lord, Lord, and don't do what I say? It's for everyone who comes to me and hears my words and puts them into practice. I'll show you what they're like. They're like a man building a house who dug down deep and laid the foundation on rock. When a flood came, the torrent struck that house and could not shake it, because it was well built. But the one who hears my words and does not put them into practice is like a man who built a house on the ground without a foundation. The moment the torrent struck that house, it collapsed. And its destruction was complete. Word of the Lord. So for this morning section, we're going to be looking at just that first part that's referred to sometimes as the blessings and woes. Blessed are you who are poor, blessed are you who hunger, and then woe to those who are rich, woe to those who lack, and woe to those who do some of those things. And Jesus is here, what I would say, talking about or addressing truth and trying to get at what do we see as the good life. This is often one of the biggest questions that we have in our society is who is correct about what is truly the good life. And Jesus is very countercultural, very counter our mindset when he does that. And so this is looking at what is truly valuable in God's sight, what is truly valuable in a life. Now, some of you have already met him, but my dad and my mom are both here visiting this weekend, and so instead of giving you yay for having a baby that turned out to be me. Good job, guys. At least I think so. Instead of giving like a regular sermon today, what I wanted to get to do is have conversation/interview with my dad. So Dad, if you would, come on up here. And we'll sort of talk through this portion and see what we think. And if you have questions as well, after a little bit we'll say, hey, if you have questions, you can raise your hand and give those. But I studied to be a journalist and work at newspapers. That's more my training, so I like getting to ask questions. My dad likes getting to give answers. You'll find that more and more as this weekend goes along. Now that he's up here, can you greet the one and only William George Lunders? So, we have this blessed are these people, woe to these people. I guess it's probably good to start with what is being blessed? What would you say?
Well, you have to start there, because if you don't understand what Jesus was saying when he said blessed, you're going to miss everything in this. And last night as I was looking at this again, I thought for just a second, he started this is his first sermon. He had just picked his disciples. There is no way those 12 men understood what he said here. As Matt said, he was so countercultural, it was so different than what they expected. They weren't getting it. And if you don't quite get it when you first read it, that's understandable, because I'm probably the oldest person in this room, and I don't think, if I have it now, I didn't get it until the last couple of years, to be honest. But blessed, in the Old Testament, meant to wish well on, but in the New Testament, when we think of that word, a lot of times, especially as Jesus used it, is happy or content is the person. So if you're blessed, you're happy and content. And that then goes to what Matthew said, is what's the good life? What makes you content?
Okay, and then when he says woe, we'll get more to that, but when he's contrasting blessed and woe, what do you think what's the woe part of it? Is it just,
well,
you're going to be unhappy with your life?
Partly, Yeah. Sometimes they use woe, sometimes they use cursed, but I think if we're going to use happy or content for the blessed, it's easy to just say, I mean, and it makes sense with what he's saying here, unhappy or maybe more importantly, discontented with your life, I think, comes with those things.
Okay. So, blessed are, or happy, contented are the poor, happy, contented are the hungry. Do we see that in real life? How would you connect that then? Because I'm not normally in a good mood if I'm hungry.
Well, I'm certainly not, but that's, I guess I would answer that a couple ways. Do you want me to talk about my little girl, or do you want me to take 1 minute on my circle? Probably the little girl.
The little girl seems like a good
Yeah.
story to
Yeah.
touch people.
You have to understand, my favorite verse in the Bible, and you should all have one, and it doesn't have to be mine. But when I was 28 and accepted Christ, the verse that got me more than anything was Acts 10:28. God is no respecter of persons. Because it just hit me. I mean, look around the room. We have every culture, we have every color, we have every back, all of those things. And growing up as a white boy in America, we thought we were special. I mean, we just did. And understanding that when I read that and I went, God is no respecter of persons. It says one thing that sometimes people look at negatively, like, you mean I can't be better than the next person? But on the other hand, it says, I'm never worse than the next person either. And that was exciting to me. And so, Matthew knows this story. The first time I ever went out of the country on a mission trip was to Belize in Central America. And we were at the Wednesday night church service, and this little 4-year-old girl, I was standing on the stage off to the side, and this little 4-year-old girl came up and took my hand and just stood there and looked at me and smiled. Now, she was a little black Belizean girl, and there was, I mean, physically filthy and all of that, and that's fine, I don't mind that. But I got thinking, if God is no respecter of persons, it means He cares for her as much as He cares for me. But it also means that every promise in Scripture is true for her the same as it is for me. Now, some of you younger ones, you're going to have to stop and think about that for a second, because that little girl had absolutely no chance of ever having as much money as I do, of ever living in as nice a place as I do, being able to travel like I do. All these things, and as Matthew said, what makes your life content? What makes your life seem like it's the good life? We all think about things, what I call stuff. Babe is Rena, Babe and I have a big house, big yard, you know, we each have our own vehicles, we eat, we get to do all those things, we have all that stuff. And God says, that doesn't make you special to me at all. And so when you think blessings like, wow, if He says, blessed are, then how does that mean the same thing for her as it meant for me? And what I realized that night as I looked at her is I've gone, I have been wrong. I have not known truth. And I didn't know the answer at that time. But I knew that how I looked at blessings was wrong. Whenever I thought it had anything to do with stuff, I knew that wasn't a proper use. But I didn't know the answer yet.
So that was sort of the beginning of your... Wait, I realized I should look for something different. You said that it's only been in the last... close to the last few years that you feel like you're starting to actually get what Jesus was talking about. What was that moment, or what are some of the things that now made that light come on of this is what it is?
I think, and again, and understand, I'm never disrespectful. I call you my kids because you're younger than I am, and I mean no disrespect, none of you are kids. But I think as I grow older and get closer to, let's face it, I'm closer to croaking than most of you, assuming a normal lifetime. And as I get closer to that, I started to look at what makes it worthwhile to get up in the morning. At this point, you guys, Some of you have your jobs, and I still go to work, but you have your jobs, or you have your studies, or you have raising your family. You know, you have all of those things. Well, my family is all raised. They don't need me. They don't need their mother and I anymore. Now, we like being in their lives, but they don't need us. You know, I've worked for 40 years, so I've done a job. When I went back to school, I did some of that. But it's what makes it worthwhile to get up in the morning. And the older I got, the more I thought about it. Again, it was never the stuff, but God took me in a path where we got to go and become involved in the lives of people. In that, as Matthew knows, I have a lot of kids at home that I call my adopted daughters and sons. They're not related to me, but I take an interest in them. And what I've learned is that the only time I'm happy anymore in life is if I'm involved in the lives of people. Why are you guys such a blessing to Rena and I to come here this weekend? You sang the song this morning, "There's no place I'd rather be in." As you were singing that, I'm going, where else would I be this morning? If I could be anywhere in the world, where else would I be that's in a better place than here? Doing what we're doing now. Because maybe it's arrogant on my part, but one of you might be influenced by what we say today to make a real difference in your life. And so that's become the driving force behind what is a blessing. And it's been because God has just He's let us go all over the world on various places to missions and things, and we'll get to go to Albania. But even at home, the realization that stuff is meaningless, but people's lives mean everything. And so 3 weeks ago I was in Cuba, and I looked at the church there the 200 people sitting in that church didn't make as much money in a year as I do, because they don't make much there. And I looked at them and I said, thinking I might get killed, "You don't need more stuff." And they clapped and applauded because they knew it was true. Blessings have to do with your relationship with Christ, nothing to do with anything else. Anyway.
For me to just share a little bit from my side as well, you said when you went to Belize was one of the first times you started realizing, oh, blessings are different than what I assumed. That has been true for me as well, not that I've been to Belize, but especially going on some of these short-term mission trips, affected a lot of my view of what was important and what I could kind of get out of life, or what was important with that, because I would go on these trips and sometimes I would come back and I'd hear somebody else say, wow, being in Haiti, for instance, which is the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, and they would come back and say, yeah, just seeing the poverty there, it makes me realize how blessed I am to live in this country and have all of my comforts. And I was thankful that I had at least seen enough to realize that that made absolutely no sense. Because they would say, I was so glad to be there. I had such a great connection with people, and I felt like God was close, and I heard God's voice, and did all these things there where we didn't have the toilets we're used to, or we didn't have some of the other comforts we're used to, or didn't have air-conditioned vehicles. And then they'd say, I come back here where I'm comfortable, and yeah, this is a great place, and I'm so blessed. And I thought, but if you can't hear God here, why do you think you're more blessed by God here? So I think I've had a bit of that. This is a shameless plug for your talk coming up about raising kids for one of your seminars. To hear the difference of that, of how old were you when you went to Belize?
Early 30s, somewhere, 32, 33 maybe.
So about 32 or 33 is the first time that you start getting this, maybe it's not about the stuff I get.
Right.
I can't say it was because I was so incredible that I started getting that in my teens. Part of that had to do with the fact that I had parents that started modeling that, and other good influences. But my mom and dad are going to be sharing about raising kids, so if that's a thing that's on your mind of how do I help my kids grow up with a mentality that's different than just what this culture has, there's a shameless plug for that. Also on how do I use my finances well, which will come up later, there's a shameless plug for Raghi, because he'll be talking about that, which is also very important of what you have, which actually leads me to my next question. So he says, blessed are the poor, woe to you who are rich. And you realize that on a worldwide scale for sure, but even in your own culture, you're doing fairly well, but worldwide scale, you're very rich.
Yeah, in the minuscule tenths of percent.
So, does that mean woe to you? And why or why not?
It could and it does to a lot of people. And it comes back to that because you see, when you are contented with your physical being, you tend to not think you need God. And that takes you away from that relationship. So, I mean, I know that God allows me to stay healthy. He's been good to me in that regard. But all of a sudden the money becomes a secondary thing as to how you're going to use it. But it's not. The difference is, back when it was woe to me, there was a time when I'd go, if I could get to be 50 years old and have a few $1 million in the bank so Rena and I could just sit back and relax, it'd be great. And that's the farthest thing. Not that I wouldn't mind having that, because we'd probably give a bunch away, but I plan to work till I die. Because when I'm working, I'm involved in the lives of other people. If I quit working, I'm sitting at home. I'm absolutely bored to tears at home. And it takes you away from people. You want to have yourself an unhappy life, stay out of the lives of other people. Just kind of close into yourself and go, I got all these problems to fix, I got to do that. And so, how do we get started on that? I go off on tangents.
I asked, if you are rich, then...
Yeah, it depends upon how you look at your money. I mean, I'm not saying that you shouldn't make money, you ought to pay your bills, you ought to be responsible. That's all part of your relationship with God. He expects you to do that. Okay, so I'm not saying that. But if that becomes the predominant thing that gives you a sense of satisfaction, then that's meaningless. You know, I am much more excited, and I know that Jesus and I are better friends and happier when we hear about someone's life that say is going to get started and they learn how to start their marriage off correctly. That's way more valuable. But, it's just the priority you give your money, and your money becomes a secondary thing. It's the attitude. The rich attitude makes you believe you're self-sufficient. The older I get, the more I realize we are completely dependent upon God for everything. I mean, you could say, well, oh, I like that. Babe helps me out. She just gave me a signal that is a super thing. Here's what rich stuff does. It's the same thing on going on a mission trip. We're going to Albania, most of you know, leaving in a couple of days. When you go on a mission trip, if you ever look at it that, here's me, Bill's gone on a mission trip to Albania to save those poor wretched souls down there. What have I said? I'm here. They're here, they need me. Now, if we're going to have a Christ-like life, what do we have to do? What did Jesus do? Philippians 2? He gave up everything, came down and became one of us. I mean, think about that. We give up a little money to go someplace. He had everything. And he says, I'll give that up to be like one of those low-life humans. He didn't say that, but that's my paraphrase. Because I want to be like this with them so that they can understand me. And when you're rich, this is what happens. You go to Haiti, the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. And people come back and go, oh, I got these blessings, and they're so poor. What they've really said is, we're better than you are. And that's not scriptural, because God said He's no respecter of persons. And if you're not scriptural, you're not in a good relationship. And if you're not in a good relationship, you're not contented and happy. And so you're not blessed, you're cursed. You're back into the wolves because you're rich, because you think you're better than somebody else. Has nothing to do with that. That's the problem.
Some things I would add into the conversation here. Acts chapter 20, verse 35, I believe, is an interesting verse to me. Because Paul is speaking, he says, as Jesus told us, it's more blessed to give than to receive. The sidelight of why that's interesting to me is that in the Gospels, we actually aren't ever told Jesus said that. So we know that there are things Jesus said that weren't recorded there that Paul says later. That's a side tangent, but we're told these are Jesus' words. It's more blessed to give than to receive. So obviously to give, you should have something to give. So it's not that Jesus wants us to never have anything, but I would also then counter that with this other time where Jesus sees, he's in the temple and there are all these guys with tons of money that are putting their money in, oh, look at how great I am. And he says, you're putting it in, but your giving isn't especially meaningful, where there's this poor woman who gives just a little bit of money she has, the smallest thing that she can put in. And he says, this woman has given out of her poverty, but she's given everything that she can. And so I would see that it's not bad for people to have finances or other sorts of things that they're able to give and be generous with to show hospitality. Having a home can be very helpful with that. Christine and I moved a year and a half ago into a home that's a little bigger for pretty much the same price, but to have the bigger home has allowed us to have a lot more people stay with us. So it's not, oh, we have this luxurious home now. It's, we have a backyard where all of the neighbor kids come over and play during their May vacation. And we have people that come stay with us. So to have things, to be able to give them is good, but don't count yourself out if you feel like, but I don't have a lot. Some of the most generous people I have seen are people who don't have a lot. And seem to get that mentality much better. And that's something I've seen in the Western Hemisphere, or in Western society, as well as in some of these places I've gone on mission trips, where they were so much more giving, and realized that it was an honor to be able to give. They thought blessed to give versus just to receive. Do you think this is something new that Jesus is bringing along, or do you see in the Old Testament some of this picture already of giving a focus on other people and not a focus on the stuff that we have?
Well, and you have to understand that some of these questions he's just coming up are brand new, and but the first thought that came to my mind was Abraham. If you recall, when Abraham is up on the mountain with his nephew, El Latola, Salt Boy, I make fun of things sometimes, and they're looking there, and what did Abraham do? He said, now Abraham was the boss there. He could have said, I'm taking that lot. You're with me, you're taking that. Well, Abraham said, tell you what, Lot, take whatever you want, I'll take what's left. And that's just fine. That's an example of being willing to give, not because it was going to be better off for him, and we've read, it'll be given back in that, and there's truth to that, and I'll let them teach that, but he gave because it was his relationship with God the Father that was important there. And the Father had said, okay, this is what we want you to do, and he says, okay, in order to keep this going, Lot, you do what you want to do. It just jumped to my mind that he was willing to give without question, even though certainly there wasn't rewards in that for him from a stuff type of thing. But he knew he was in the Father's will where he was supposed to be. And he does it without hesitation. I'm sure we could, think of David, who was loaded to the gills, who wanted to build the temple, but God says no, Sometimes you may want to give some things and God says you're not going to get to, but that was for other reasons than just that your money is bad, although kind of it was, so we got to yeah, I'm sure if we thought about it, there'd be all kinds of ones. If you got some, I'll let you talk.
Well, with Abraham, even when God starts talking to him, I will bless you, and you will be a blessing to all nations. And this idea that it was certainly not a blessing just for himself, but it's supposed to go to others. What do you think about in, say, the Ten Commandments? Is there anything that sticks out to you there? Like the 10th.
The 10th? That's a good one. He kind of knows that the 10th commandment is my favorite because I believe it wraps up everything. I call it thou shalt not envy. Basically it's thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's goods and all this kind of stuff. But the problem being is it goes back to this stuff again, because it's talking about you're envying something that is not yours, that God never gave you. Whether it's the authority over God, that was Satan, cost him big time. Whether it's the authority over your parents when you're a child, cost most kids, would have cost my kids big time. whether or not it's the
Sometimes.
authority over somebody's life, whether or not it's the authority over somebody else's spouse, whether or not it's the authority over the truth or whatever, you're envying something that God specifically didn't give you. And all the commandments are wrapped up in that. And that's because you're worried about you and blessings, just like in the Old Testament were to wish well upon others. Blessings are designed for others. Your blessings come back just kind of as a bonus, but the whole intent is that everything that we should be doing is blessing others in any way we can. So that's what the 10th commandment says to me.
Okay. If we go back to Jesus' words, so there's this list of 4 things that he says are blessed, 4 things that he says are woes. Starts with blessed are the poor, blessed are those who are hungry, and we've seen some of that having to do with stuff and things and how we should react with that. The third one, blessed are those who mourn, and then he says, woe to those who are laughing. Now you're someone who obviously likes to laugh. I know that well. I think that's become noticeable to some people. What do you make of that? Are we supposed to be sour people? Or sad people?
Never. Never. Again, what does that word really mean? Never, never, never. I mean, because we look at the rest, you got to put all the scripture. You can never take just one piece of scripture on its own. And when you receive the gifts of the Holy Spirit, I mean, let's face it, it says joy is right up there. Show me an unhappy, unjoyful Christian, I'll show you somebody that just doesn't get what God wants to give them. Okay? That doesn't mean your life goes good. The reason I smile all the time is because I don't tell you all the bad things that happen to me. What difference does it make? That's to me. That's God and me. That's okay. You don't need to know that. You should be joyful pretty much all the time. I'm sorry. But the mourning has nothing to do with mourning your own condition. This is my belief, and I may be wrong. Mourning has nothing to do with mourning my condition. I mourn how I see people's lives not being as fulfilled with Christ as they could be. Let me give you an example. I work in an emergency room. Now, our emergency rooms in America are a little different than here. We see all kinds of things. People just come in to get cared for if they want to be seen. So it could be everything from heart attacks to train wrecks to you got a cold. Okay? And it could be just because you like your narcotics and you want to come in and say you got back pain and so you want some drugs. And I get in trouble with my bosses sometimes, never because of how I treat patients, because they can't argue with me that I've done it for too long and I'm kind of good at that. But I get in trouble because I will tell people the truth about how it's affecting their lives. I have a lot of people under 40 years old that are so addicted to narcotics, they come in and now I just look at it and I'm not mad at all. I'm trying to illustrate this morning point. I'm not mad at them, it's their life. It doesn't make my life worse. But I go, look, if you're already on this and this, and it's not important what drugs they are, but I know where they are in the spectrum of addiction, I said, I'll be real honest. There will be nothing for you by the time you're 40. You will have overdosed and be dead. Because you will not be able to find enough stuff to give your body another buzz. Now that breaks my heart. Because I mourn for their life being thrown away. I mourn for people in here if you're throwing your life away. If you're going to be a perpetual taker versus a giver, I mourn for you. Because a taker is never blessed. Givers are blessed. Now, if you're a new Christian, that's a whole different ballgame. Soak it up and learn. When I was brand new, I started reading and I took from everybody I could take from. That was a long time ago. Paul tells us, and I know we're getting off track just a bit, but Paul tells us to get off the milk and get onto the meat. Which means quit taking and start giving. Grow up and be an adult. And so when he says those that mourn, it's your mourning for the life you see in others because God is no respecter of persons. It will be the same for all of us in here. Guess what? My life ain't any different than your lives. And so everything happens to everybody. You get heartbroken, you get this, you get that. Everything happens to everybody. But I mourn for those that don't allow Christ to come in and deal with it in a way to make a change in their life. Why do I smile all the time? I have a pretty good life, yeah. Never used to always be that way. But Babe and I are gone on 42 years. I think we have our own struggles, but that's with getting older. But I don't know anybody that's had a happier, better marriage than we do. God's blessed us. That's not us, that's just Him. Mourn for those that are struggling. But never mourn for yourself. You should be joyful for that. So I'm happy. Anyway, that's my idea of what mourning means.
So then what would be your idea of what the laughing means? When he says, woe to those who are laughing.
Well, because they're laughing because they think their situation is so great without Christ. I mean, let's be real honest. People laugh at me all the time back home. Most people think I'm completely insane. A lot of people I work with think I'm nuts. They're also not Christians. Some of them are kind of weak Christians or whatever. But they laugh because they go, why would you go spend your money to go to Albania where you don't even know those people? When, holy cow, you can buy yourself a brand new big SUV. I know I want an SUV. I don't have one yet. Because I'm going to spend the money to go to Albania. And so they laugh.
It doesn't cost that much to go to Albania.
You're right.
Those interested in going on mission trips is not going to cost an SUV.
Don't let me scare you out there. I'm sorry. No. And so people that do not understand and that do not believe will laugh, if you call it laugh like that, because they will think that what you're doing is completely, a nice way to say it is silly, a bad way to say it is that you're just completely nuts, completely insane. I get that all the time, doesn't matter.
Would you say that that then ties into our fourth one, where Jesus says, blessed are you when people persecute you, when people speak poorly of you because of the name of Jesus. Woe to you when everyone speaks well of you.
Oh, yeah.
Did you set that up perfectly for that, or?
No, but you really did. You did a good job there, buddy.
You're welcome.
Just yesterday when we were riding over, Rena and I were talking with Sonny about the politics in America, and I'm not going into our politics, but so many people pay so much attention to all of these things that ain't going to change and affect your life. You think it will, but it really doesn't. And whenever let's face it, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that more people in Holland, and we're just going to use Holland as an example, are not Christians than are. And I'm going to tell you the same thing, that in real terms, even though in America 70% may say they're still Christian, in real terms, more people in America are not Christian than are as well. Okay? So I'm in the minority. Rena and I are in the minority. And Scripture is quite replete with, you're not to be worldly. That doesn't mean we don't live in the world, but it's not that important. So if the whole world agrees with you, what does that say about you? I saw that the title on this was Truth. What does that say about you? You're wrong. I'm sorry. You're wrong. Because the whole world is wrong. Many of you have never heard this. Truth, this is my favorite definition of truth. And it came from something called the Truth Project that we had in the United States. And the guy made this comment. They were asking people what is truth, because that's pretty important when you come to starting looking at something this important in Scripture. What is truth? What is the truth of what blessings mean? And the guy made the comment is, truth is God's perception of reality. And that has stuck with me for years. I love that line. I've never forgotten it. It's the only real thing I remember out of that whole project, but truth is God's perception of reality. Truth is what He says it is. Whether I like it or not, whether 99% of the Netherlands says, no, it's that. Truth is what He says it is. And that means I have to be in the minority. We are never going to be in the majority. That's why if I win a political election, although in the last one I didn't have a chance of winning because they were both losers, but if I win a political election in the United States, something's real wrong. I don't ever win. The person I vote for doesn't win. Because I'm not voting like the majority of the people who are voting not on truth, not on what God says, but on what they want. And so you're right. We're going to be persecuted, we're going to be laughed at, we're going to be attacked, we're going to be all of those things. Because if you aren't, if people go, oh, attaboy, way to be, Bill, I immediately feel bad about my life. I go, wow, how did I screw up today? Seriously.
How do you get from point A to point B? It will be sort of this next part. So, growing up, you were a poor farm boy who wanted, number one, to get out of that situation growing up. You wanted to work hard so that you could make a lot of money, eventually get these millions, do all these things. Most people probably wouldn't believe it, and it's sometimes hard for me to believe, but you say when you grew up, you weren't a person who's this outgoing as talkative. And would people pleaser be a right term with that, or not necessarily?
When I was growing up?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
The
think
first 30 years of your life.
I tried to stay unnoticed out of trouble. So you try to please people, you know. I was not like I am now. Yeah.
So, growing up, and probably, let's say, first 30 years of your life or so, you would have been much more likely to say, well, yeah, blessed are going to be those who are rich, blessed are those who are well fed, blessed are those who people speak well of you, blessed are those who are happy, are laughing now. Now you sort of have Jesus do that switch.
Right.
How do you get from point A to point B, or what's some of that process been for you? Because I'm sure there are people in the room who go like, oh yeah, well, I
That
kind of like to
sounds
think
good.
that way. I'd like to have God's view. That sounds great. But how does that switch in my head? How does that switch in my heart? How does that switch in my spirit, soul, and body?
I really wish I was so smart to give you a simple answer. I'm smart, but I'm not that smart. However,
He's also humble, but not quite that.
you guys sang the last song you sang this morning. I was sitting there in the back and I got thinking when you sang, I'm not, you know, he's not finished with me yet. And I got thinking, I'm the oldest one in here, and I know that he's not finished with me yet.
Amen.
And if he's not, and he's not, I'm far from a finished product. And so if he's not finished with me, this I do know, he's not finished with any of you. Trust me. But how do we get there? You know, if I was going to give you the simple, honest answer, okay, babe, I'll let you help me out here.
We have made lots of mistakes, and you get hammered into your head. You're going, you're not doing it God's way, and it's not God hammering you necessarily, it's your own conscience. But I feel like God has really used our mistakes, and you gotta not be so careful as to say, oh, I have to be perfect. You have to live life. You can't be perfect. You have to make mistakes and know that they'll teach you sometimes the hard way, and sometimes a very hard way, but you have to learn from them.
Yeah.
And that's how I saw him switch, and I've seen the change. I saw the change. I married a man who was not a Christian, and then he changed, and I'm going, whoa, what happened here? But we made a lot of mistakes to get to that point.
The simplest answer is we've gotten to wherever we're at by the grace of God. That's the absolute simplest answer, because I did not set out to end up here. Never ever. If you'd have asked me when Rita and I got married that someday this is where my life would be and this is what would be important to us, oh, I was a physician then, I would have gotten you certified insane, because that was just never going to happen. But God just changed things over time, and a little bit, and a little bit.
Just anecdotally, at one point, my mom, Rena, had said to you, oh, I'd be interested in missions work. Can you share a bit how that conversation went
Sure.
30 years ago or so?
Well, it was more than that. I was born 40 years ago. We were dating, and she was saved, and I was a Catholic. I'm not insulting Catholics, but I wasn't a saved Catholic. She was saved. She knew she shouldn't be dating me. But as we always say in our marriage thing, all guys lie. And I knew enough back then to lie, because she said, oh, you know, sometime if we ever ended up together, I'd like to go on missions. Now stop and think, as a Catholic, missions is not even in the radar. Catholics don't, I didn't grow up thinking missions of any sort, way, shape, or form. That's the priest's job, let them do their whatever. I mean, that's not us. And so one, I didn't even understand, but I knew it had something to do with going to see all them poor people. And I'm gone. Oh yeah, babe, that'd be great. We'll do that. And in my brain I'm going, that ain't never happening. There ain't no chance we're going on a mission trip anywhere, anytime, any place ever. But she wants to hear yes, so she got a yes. You betcha. True story.
So God changed that mentality of, you grew up in a way that, yeah, it was not the job of the individual, but it was the job of people who are ordained or specifically for that, instead of it being the individual's job.
He just happened to trigger something else that came to my brain. It's just like going to Albania, and a number of years ago, I changed my whole thought process about missions too. When I went to Belize, I really thought I was going to help those poor people, okay? Now I'm going to Albania, and my thought process, no matter where God asks me to go, and He doesn't ask me to go everywhere. If somebody says, oh, you ought to go to, I don't know why I just thought Estonia, you ought to go to Estonia. Well, if the Holy Spirit doesn't tell you to go to Estonia, just look at them very nicely and go, no, I haven't been told to go to Estonia. People, when I was in the States, wanted me to go to Mexico all the time. I'm going, God's never told me to go to Mexico. I've never gone on a mission trip to Mexico. Don't want to go on a mission trip to India, but He might change my mind. Anyway, I look at it now completely differently. Now, I am constantly amazed that God chooses to allow me to go. The thought that for instance, the thought that He let me go to Cuba 3 weeks ago, and one morning just talking to some people in a village and just getting to tell my story of the 2 prodigal sons. And there are 2 of them, and I've been both, so I like to use that story when I present the gospel. And to just have 10 adults accept Christ right there, and you go, how does God do that? And why would He pick me? Because we're not finished products. I really am not. I'm pretty good for show, but that's because of my personality, but I'm not that good a guy. And I'm amazed that God chooses to use us to go on a trip. It boggles my brain. I'm going, He can find so many better people than that. Why doesn't He find, and those that have gone to Albania know that I need to talk to the uncles. One of them's he's a farmer. He's got arms this big. I talked to him last year. If he doesn't like me and takes one swing, trust me, I'm in heaven. Rita's a widow and richer. It's okay. But this dude is.
But not blessed are you who are richer because your husband died.
Because your husband's died.
But if you're mourning,
yeah, then it's okay. And the fact that God very definitely has laid on my heart that He goes, I want you to go to talk to the uncle. I don't know what he's going to do. He could say yes, he could say no, he could say whatever. But that I know I'm supposed to go talk to this uncle, somebody who I've only met once in my life. He did that once before with an African chief in Sierra Leone. No, in Guinea. This was in Guinea. Kankan, Guinea. And we made a special trip just to go see this chief out in this mud hut in the middle of nowhere. Amazing blessing. And it's an amazing honor when God chooses to use you. So, I look at mission trips completely different anymore. Now I'm humbled to get to go when I used to think, well, I'm a pretty big dog, so I ought to go do this. He just uses what you got and you get to take it. So all of you ought to be doing something. But not if you want to be discontented and cursed and woeful. Then you just sit at home and don't worry about it.
after he goes through, these are the blessed people, and then he talks about great is your reward in heaven. I mean, just like the prophets were rejected and insulted, but they get this reward in heaven. Great will be your reward in heaven. How do you take your eyes off of looking for rewards on earth and instead storing up treasure in heaven, looking for a reward in that sort of a way, thinking long term?
I'm going to let Matthew really answer this question. I will give you my short answer because I am different. I think different than almost all of you in this regard. And I'm not saying that you have to accept my belief on this. I have come to the point that certainly rewards on earth are meaningless. But I don't even think of rewards in heaven. I don't think I earn anything. And the reason I don't is because how can a God that is that great, who has done what he has done, sit there and go, and way down on that little spot is this guy named Bill Lunders, and oh wow, he went to Africa and he oh yeah, I'll give him some points for that, and he went to there, oh yeah, he gets some points for that. I just don't know how. I'm not saying you should believe this, but I personally don't believe that I ever earn any points. I go because God loved me so much, and I'm not trying to pay a debt because I can't. I just love to go because he loves me. And that's the greatest blessing. So I can't answer that question. You have to answer that question.
I got an idea of how I can help you to answer that question. But in your response, that sounds like a shameless plug for one of the songs we sang, that you would say, this is my grateful reaction.
Yeah.
Is to put truth and love into action.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's coming from, I'm here to say thank you, not because I'm here to get something.
I don't get anything out of this. I don't expect my life to go better. I don't expect to get home after Albania and all of a sudden everybody at work is really good to me and everything goes great and my hip doesn't hurt and I'm like this new person, all of that. No. It's just, can you believe he let me go? So until I croak or can't literally go, I go. It's just amazing, yeah. It's a reaction.
But in an idea of reward, you love the story of the prodigal sons.
Oh, absolutely. My favorite.
And what would you say is the outcome of that parable? What is it? What's the reward that the father is offering at the end of that story?
See, the reward to both of them is the reward to just spend time and enjoy it. We think of the party, and the spending son, okay? Spending son goes, screws up, comes home. Dad says, I'm going to have a party. But what it's really all about for the son, because the son says, I'll go work in your pig pens, right? I don't need nothing special, but the dad says, oh man, you don't understand, dude. I love you so much, I just want to be with you. And then you got the older son who goes, I was here being a good boy, getting all these rewards all my life. I was working for you every day. I was up at sunup. I let you sleep in while I milked the cows. I did all of this. And I ain't got squat. And God straightened him out in a hurry. He said, you could have spent time with me every day. But you failed. So to me, it does go to that. The reward is the prodigal son. See, when I'm with this uncle, win or lose, as the song said, I know that Jesus, through the Holy Spirit, is going to be with me. And that's the reward. That's the thrill. I'm not there alone. I never used to understand that. It's what's made it so much easier. As I get older, it's easier for me to go, dude, what are you doing with your life? When I was 30 years old, I wouldn't have challenged people. I wouldn't have said, gee, do you attend a church? Do you know Jesus? Are you doing anything? But now, it's gone, well, it's he and I, so we get to do this. Let's have some fun. Why? Because we get involved in the lives of people. And what does that mean? Blessed. What does that mean? Closer relationship with Christ. It's a vicious circle, but it's kind of nice. So you're right. So that's my reward.
Told you I could get him to come up with a reward up there. So, just, I guess to wrap this part up then, so you'd say a lot of the blessing part comes from relationship and the reward comes from relationship, and that's a big thrust of what he's trying to say here, is your focus not on your stuff, your focus not on what you get out of it, or even getting people's, getting the pleasure of people per se, but at least the interaction with people and the opportunity to share what God has
Yeah.
given you.
Yeah. And the vice versa is quite easy, it's just the opposite. That's why I like the plains better than the Sermon on the Mount, because he's very, he goes, on this side, there's 4 blessings, on this side, there's 4 curses. And they're just the opposite. And so it makes it kind of easy, it's just the opposite. If you want to choose to go after the stuff as your primary goal, you won't experience that. Are you kidding me? He's actually letting me talk to the uncle? You won't experience that. And there's nothing. You're young. Don't expect you to believe me because I'm just a person. But if you can remember this day back to when you're 65, remember that that old geezer told you you'd think like this, because you will. I guarantee it. Life is like that.
So looking forward to our second section. When we go through the second part, that's the love part. We've seen truth, love. Just keep that in mind. You will see how much that is about interaction with people. Love is not about one person and themselves. It's about how do we interact. What about judging? What do you do with your enemies? What do you do about when you see someone has a difficulty? What do you do about giving? So you'll see how relationship ties through a lot of this as we go.